What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Dream Chasers Ground Zero. Today, I have with us Matt Teifke. Matt, would you just mind sharing with us a story of what we like to call your personal ground zero moment and some of the things that you learned along the way to help you get to where you are now?
Absolutely, man. I'm happy to be here. Thanks everyone for tuning in and listening as well. Aaron, appreciate you. Um, I guess on a deep level, spiritual level, is accepting Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. Um, and that was when I was in Africa when I was, I think, around 20 years old. On a business level, the trajectory that I think helped shape my career was holding the mop in my hand, working at Wingstop in high school, and it was probably 11 o'clock, 11:30. We closed at like 12 or 1, I can't remember. And just realizing like all my friends are out having fun. What the heck am I doing? I love Wingstop, so that's why I was working there. I like the chicken wings. But I was mopping the floor, man, and it's not that I thought of myself as above that job, or I don't, or like mopping or anything like that, but more just I was looking at a clock waiting for time to go by. And as we all know, like time's our most valuable resource. And so to think about wanting time to go by, I mean, that's just wasting your life. So ultimately that's probably what it was, is not wanting to look at a clock. I really literally just remember looking up at that clock and just wanting the time to go by. So the thought process was, how do I get myself in a position to never have to do this and to not be in this position? And honestly, ever since I started my career in real estate, I haven't looked at a clock other than to make sure I'm on time for meetings. But I didn't want it in that same sense of like time to go by. And it's probably the same for like, being in detention or something like that when you're in high school. Like, oh, I can't wait for, an hour to go up. That's just not a good feeling, and not the way I wanted to operate within the short amount of time that I may have on this life, or that we do, that we do have.
No, I think that's actually a pretty powerful realization just because I think a lot of us, like when hearing that story, are going to think about a time where, we were either stuck in class or at a job, like you mentioned, just kind of in some sort of situation where we're sitting there and we're bored or uninterested, or, like you said, we're just waiting for time to go by because whatever situation we're in at that moment just doesn't excite us.
Right.
And that's where I think that it's super kind of powerful, like you mentioned, like that you kind of have to find that thing. And sometimes that takes a little bit of digging. I mean, I know that college for a lot of people is that kind of I'm trying to think of a right word for it, like where you kind of just get thrown into a bunch of different things and you find something you like like kind of like that. but
Yeah.
um but yeah, what I mean is I just think that it's super powerful that you were able to realize that at that time, and then go and shift and pursue something that does excite you. And like you said, you really haven't looked back since then, other than for making sure that you're on time for meetings. But
Yeah.
to follow that up, I just want to ask, after you made that realization, kind of what was your next step? Because I mean, when you did realize it, did you already have real estate in mind, or kind of where were you at that time?
Um, I don't know, maybe subconsciously, but my mom was a big part of this because she raised my brother and myself, single mom, worked really hard, sacrificed a lot, and over time she acquired a couple of properties a year for 10-15 year time period, and she ended up having a lot of properties, maybe like 15 or 20. And so I was able to, one, understand what it takes to get that, and two, what it means to have that. And it definitely doesn't mean what most people think that it means, where you're just making all this money every month. It's more like, how do I make enough money to keep these properties, because expenses and taxes and things are going to come up. So I was able to see her build that and do that. And it was just pretty obvious to me how to understand the value of real estate by seeing her do it. And the simple concept of, hey, put a down payment, have a mortgage, get some rent, that rent pays it off. And so I just always looked at it like, you have that initial investment, and then in a 10, 20, 30 year type time frame, you can refinance or sell or pay it off. And that was always very interesting to me. And so I think I had that in the back of my mind, and then I actually ended up going to college and got my real estate license my sophomore year of college. I knew I wanted to be in real estate in some form or fashion. I was blessed, my mom would always say like, "We're going to give these properties to you and your brother one day," and at this point, like, that maybe will happen, but that's going to be in like 40 years, so it doesn't mean anything. But I at the time I was like, oh wow, like, okay, I got to get prepared. And so in the meantime, I started building my own base of properties, but really it started as being a real estate agent. And I just thought, let me go build a foundation, a knowledge base to understand how other people are doing this, to really get serious about this craft and like get great at it, and then figure out how to start owning my own properties along the way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that a lot of us kind of get caught up in that point right there, where we've now decided, like, okay, I don't like where I'm at and I want to go in this new direction. And then they start to say, like, okay, I do know that I need to learn more about it in order to get good at it. Like you said, you went to school, got your real estate license, became a realtor. Like, obviously, we're taking those steps, but then we get there and then we're kind of like, now what?
Hmm.
And like you said, that's where you started paying a lot of attention to what other people are doing. What are other successful people doing that's working for them? What can I reapply? How can I then, take what they're doing, make it work for me, and start building that traction that way?
Hmm.
And that's kind of where I want to zone in right now. For a lot of us, like especially young people, we kind of like bounce between different habits and things right now. That's just kind of part of where we are. But when you do kind of fixate on something and you say, I am highly attracted to this sector and I want to learn how to do this, what advice would you give to that person that then needs to sort of go find somebody to kind of model or idolize, whatever kind of term you want to use there, like when they're looking for that person, that other successful, person in that industry that they can then learn from, to create success of their own.
Yeah, I kind of think that the person that they're looking for is probably within them, and so they have to figure out how to bring that out. There's a lot of ways that I think about it, and a lot of thoughts, and we're always evolving, and I don't know everything by any means, but have some opinions, and I'm always trying to be fluid to learn more. But I feel like most people are much too short term with what they do, and everything takes consistency. And we all know, like, a constant improvement, 1%, you just get better and better and better. But you just have to be really committed and determine how committed and like what level you're going for. Some people are super competitive and they want to be the best. Like, I'm gonna be like, in that sense, it's like nobody can be doing more than I am. So at all given time, I'm pushing forward, I'm learning, I'm executing, I'm getting better. Some people have different goals and they want to be part-time and do it a different way. But the only thing which is very interesting to me, I mean, at least here in Austin, and I do believe this in the United States, like, we're blessed to be here. We have so much opportunity. I mean, if you have electricity and running water, you have an opportunity to go do something. And I know not everybody has that. And so I'm sympathetic, and I want to figure out like what's the best message to get to those people. But we can all do something. And if you say you want more, but you're watching Netflix or this or that, then maybe you don't want more. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I watch Netflix, but I didn't for a long time when I was like trying to get to a certain spot. And it's just interesting because I think back and I remember I would literally, my whole goal was I'm gonna be the first one in, the last one out. I would come with a list of questions when I started at my brokerage, like 50 questions. And I would just ask so many questions, very specific, because I was thinking through it and like contemplating what does this mean? Or how do you do this? And when I think back, we built a brokerage, and this is no disrespect to anybody on our team, but it's just the reality. We have 100 and probably 40, 50 real estate agents. And I've had maybe one or two people approach that, what I did to me. Like, no one's ever come to, like, except for these one or two, no one's ever come to me with a list of questions. And I don't know exactly what that is, because I put myself out there and I tell people I'll do that. And maybe they have like once or twice, but I did this every day for 2 3 years with multiple people. And I don't know exactly if it's that they just truly don't want that, if they think they want that, or if there's just so much opportunity out there that you're just on to the next, and you're not trying to build from the basics and build up. You're just going for the results. I don't know what it is, man, but it is interesting to think that. Like, I realized this like a week or two ago. Like, no one's ever approached me the way that I was approaching other people. And I couldn't wait to have somebody's time. And I would ask them questions where people they'll come to me now and they're like, well, I just want to shadow you, or I just want to see it. I'm like, no offense, but like, what question do you have? If you don't have a specific question, you're not even thinking about it. You're just like wanting to think about it. Like, ask me something specific, right? And I'd love that. I really would. And so I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of rambling in a sense, but it is interesting, and it's something that I've recently started thinking about a lot. Ultimately, man, I just think that you've got to be really consistent, and anything that you want to stick with, you will get that to happen. Like, most people just, they hear a no and they stop, but like, you have to keep pushing and get more creative and think longer term, and it will happen, if you're diligent enough and you want it bad enough. And I know that maybe sounds simple, but it is real.
No, and I do just want to jump in here and say that like it wasn't a ramble, like it did, come to a certain point. I'm with you here. Like I think that what you said made a lot of sense. And I feel like that it's super important, especially for people like roughly my age right now, like in that weird in between stage where you're like not a full-time working adult, but you're also not like a young kid in high school anymore, where so we don't know exactly what we want to do with the rest of our lives. And there's not anything wrong with that.
No.
But that's where a lot of us bounce between 30 different things and we don't ever fixate on something. So we never necessarily become that good at any one thing, kind of like what you were just talking about. And why I say that that's so important is just because, like you said, like you don't think deeply through enough of those things. So you don't exactly stand out from anybody else. And you're kind of just that like brick in the wall per se, where like you just kind of blend in with everybody else and you're not necessarily any better, not necessarily any worse, but it's really hard to stand out that way.
Yeah.
And what I feel like a lot of us do is we try to like base who we think we should be based off of who everyone else thinks we should be.
Mm.
And that I think is where a lot of people get kind of hung up, where whether that be from like our parents' beliefs, professors, anything like that. We kind of base who we think we're supposed to be based off of what somebody else said.
Yeah.
And I think that completely derails a lot of us from even realizing like what it is that we actually want to do because we're just so fixated on
Yeah.
whatever somebody else said. And it's kind of funny. I was even talking with one of my professors kind of about this point just this morning, and the quote that he used was, "You can't fit a round peg in a square hole."
Sure.
And I mean, especially if you've ever had one of those like little wooden box toys where they come with the little blocks that are in different shapes around the side, and you try to put them in, they don't fit in the other holes. Like, and it's specifically designed for that reason. But at the same time, it's just a really powerful like concept if you really break it down, because
Right.
like each of us really are kind of, I don't want to say like groomed, but like we are a certain way and everybody is. And there's a certain thing that we like to do that, maybe somebody else doesn't like to do. So like you only have like a specific shape and, for lack of a better term, hole that you fit into. And you're not going to fit in the same one as Johnny that sits next to you in whatever class, like everybody has their different thing, but not everybody like looks deeply internally to
Yeah.
find out what that thing is for them. They
Absolutely.
just take it based off of what their professor or their mom or whoever said. And that's kind of the point that I'm trying to get to, is that a lot of us don't even know what our thing is because we never even explore that to go and try and find out. And that's also where I really like the point that you said, like all the opportunity that we have. Like, you hear people say the world is our oyster and they say all these, weird little cliches and whatnot, but it's true. Like, like if you want to learn about something with the power of the internet and different apps and everything, now you can go learn about it and you can be as
Sure.
good at it as you want to be, but you have to pursue that. And like you mentioned, if you don't fully go into that, then maybe you don't want it that bad, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, unless that's like unless you have all your eggs in that basket per se.
Yeah. Or I think it's a bad thing if you don't realize that. Like, you just got to get real with yourself. Like, oh, maybe I don't want to make more money, and maybe I do like to watch Netflix 2 hours a day. And that's okay. There honestly is nothing wrong with like having different priorities. And like I was saying earlier, like bringing it out within you, that goes along with exactly what you're saying. The best definition I've ever heard for me personally, of what it means to find success or to be successful is to be as close as possible to the person that you were put on this earth to be. That to me is the best definition of success. It's not about, I used to think it was like, do what you want, when you want, with who you want. Like, screw that. If you want everything, you're going to get nothing. Right. And you just have to be real with yourself and figure out what is it that drives me and pushes me. And I'm 100% on board with what you're saying. Like, we're getting tricked into thinking that it's more money or prestige or title. It's not. It's not. It's not. Money's not going to make you happy. That's what I'm trying to do with our agents and team is like, they're coming here and they're struggling, and yeah, they need leads, but really they need something else at a deeper core fundamental. Leads and making money are going to solve a problem temporarily, like a band-aid fix. But let's get to the core. Like, are you living out your strengths? Are you being who you were put on this earth to be? And if you can, then you can get on fire and you're going to love it. And you're going to be operating at a different level. And
Yeah,
everyone has
absolutely.
different strengths. Everyone's
Yeah,
different,
yeah.
right? Nothing's better. Nobody's more important than anyone else. Everyone has different skills. Everyone can apply their value in different ways, and we can all benefit from that.
Specifically, like I feel like growing up, I just kind of always thought differently than the people around me. And what I kind of mean by that is like, I don't know, my mind was just in a different place. And I like allowed that to be suppressed because nobody else was thinking that way. And I thought that that made me weird and outcast, whatever. So, excuse me, I never really talked about the things that I was thinking about because nobody else was. And I didn't want to be that kid that didn't fit in. And I think a lot of us can kind of relate to that. But what I'm saying is that, I mean, from an extremely young age, like kids now, I don't necessarily want to say kids, but people now are groomed, are figuratively beaten with a societal hammer to fit into very specific like job fields, opportunities, like to think a certain way. And if you think outside of that, you are weird,
Yeah,
banished, whatever word that you want to use. But we're like, I mean, from when we're old enough to know our name, we are forced into an identity that is not what we say it is.
absolutely.
And that I think is just, I don't know, like that's one of my missions now is to help a lot more people realize that
Yeah,
just because like that was me. And I feel like one of the biggest things for me is that like in order for me to recognize it, kind of like you were just talking about earlier, in order for me to recognize that that's what was going on, I had to literally lose everything else that I had already had. And like I'll admit like what it took for me to do that, to like completely reset from all of that was painful. Like I had like to go through like my biggest thing prior to like pursuing any of this stuff was basketball. I wanted to go see if I could play overseas. That was my that was where my mind was fixated. I was on sports. That's what I was doing. I was spending all my time doing that. That is where I wanted to find my success. But long story short, that didn't work out. In doing that, like I didn't know who I was outside of that. But being stripped of all that then allowed me to look inside, like we were just talking about, to
yeah,
see what truly motivated me, what I truly wanted, you know, after graduation, out of life, the different just different things like that. But in order for me to see any of that, I had to lose the one thing that I held on to most dear. And
Let me-
I'm
let-
yeah, go ahead.
I just want to. I didn't mean to cut you off. I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know now and going through that experience, looking back, do you think that if you would have became a professional basketball player, that you would have been missing what you see now, and it wouldn't have worked out in the best way that is for you personally? Like, you think if you would have got what you thought you wanted, you would actually be less happy than what the direction you're on now?
I do.
That's great,
Um,
right?
yeah, I mean, not trying to like
I was
go too
hoping that
far
was the
into this,
answer.
but yeah, I do. You know what I mean? Like,
So how cool
and
is
I
that?
like the
It's
way
like,
that. Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just saying, how cool is that? Like, what you thought you wanted is not what you really needed.
Yeah, and I think that that alone is just so powerful just because like and I didn't even know it. Like that is all I had on my mind for the longest time. Like literally like my entire life essentially up until that point, that was where I was fixated. And then I lost that. And then all of a sudden I had to find something new and then I discovered all these other things that I'm looking at now, but I never would have found those otherwise. Like you're just saying. Like and that in itself is just so like mind-boggling just because like that was where I felt my identity was. That's where I felt at home, safe, whatever word that you want to use there. And it was just like, and it wasn't what I thought it was. Not that I wouldn't have been happy
Right.
per se in that
Sure.
situation, but it's also not what I have my eye on now. And
You wouldn't
it
have been
would
as
have been
fulfilled.
different,
Yeah.
right.
And if you can, and maybe you're already doing this, but I would encourage you to take the best things from that journey that you did like about it. What was it that kept you on to basketball? Did you like constantly improving? Did you like risks? Did you like people counting on you? Did you like being an underdog? Whatever it was, like take those things that you love from that path and apply them to this new journey and this new path that you're on.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm actually just writing that down right now. But
No, that's cool. I love it.
I want to remember that one. It was a good one. But no, and I feel like one of the ways that I sorry, you want to go ahead?
No, I just wanted to make sure you kind of were following like what I was getting at with that. Like, and maybe you're already doing that, but I feel like that's a really cool thing to do.
No, and honestly, really up until you've said that I haven't thought of it that way. I feel like I have kind of subconsciously been doing that. But like until you just pointed out, like I feel like I hadn't looked at it in a way that like, do I like the competitiveness of it? Do I like the team aspect? Do I like being an underdog? Like you said, like I guess I never really looked at it that way. To the point that like now I'm thinking about it, you know what I mean? Like what things
Yeah,
do
yeah.
I like that, go to both things. But yeah, what
Cool.
I was just gonna say is like one of the ways that I've just started to look at it differently, I guess, is like I'm assuming like you've been in business here for a little while now. Like I'm assuming you've seen like a supply and demand curve. Like I
Hmm.
learned about these in, economics like last year or something like that. But like they kind of make like an X on the graph, okay? And like one line is obviously like the demand and the other line is like the pricing, the supply of it. And depending on how high the supply is, how high the demand is, you can be at different points on that line, but the point where they intersect is like equilibrium. That is the most ideal position for both situations. And I mean, literally this hit me this morning after some of my conversations with my professor and getting him prepared for this interview, that we all kind of have our own supply and demand curve, but what it is it's a curve of what I want and what I think is best for me compared to what society wants and what society thinks is best for me. And what you need to do is take a combination of the two because there are people out there. You can have mentors, you can have parents, grandparents that do have a lot of experience and know, more than you do, and they can help you shape what you think you want. But there's also a certain point that you have to look deeply enough internally to know what you want out of your life and what you want to achieve. And you have to find, like that equilibrium point where you find, this is me, this is my identity, this is what I want to achieve, this is my vision for the future in comparison to what they want. And as I said, like there's some of us that we just don't know enough. And there are people out there that do. And it's perfectly okay to take that advice. But if you take too much of that, you're not going to be fulfilled and you're not going to be on the path that you want to be on internally. Like we were just talking about, like I knew that was something that I enjoyed and I was taking the advice from all these people around me, but I was still on a path that I wouldn't have been as fulfilled as the one that I'm on now because I now had to combine that with what I truly wanted. And I had to take that away and look internally enough. And like I said, this realization basically just hit me this morning and I hope it's making sense.
No, it
But
does. It's really good, man.
yeah,
And I think it's trying to have a balance, and it kind of applies to what I was saying about like asking questions. Like you're acknowledging that there's people out there that know more than you and me and everything that we do. So you should be constantly asking those questions, and then also reflecting internally to figure out who you are, to then come to that equilibrium, like you were saying, right? And it's like this little thought that I have, and I heard someone else say it, but it's like people are like, "Hey, can I pick your brain?" Right? And you start to think about it, it's like, pick my brain? Like, hell no. That sounds horrible, right? But like, why even ask that question? Just ask me an actual question. What's your question? You don't need to schedule to pick my brain for coffee, although I'm happy to meet with people. but ask me an actual question. Or if you don't, you're not even thinking. You're wanting to act like you're thinking. What is your question? And just ask it and then ask the next one and add value for people and things will tend to work out.
No, and I love what you just said, just because like I was one of those people when I was first getting started out that I was reaching out to a lot of people, asking to set up phone calls, different things like that. And I tried not to use pick your brain as I was advised from a mentor, just because it's been, I feel like you could say, overly used at this point. But at the same time, like you just said, like you can cut through all that and just ask somebody a question. And
And before you ask that question, have you typed it in on Google? Like, and then maybe you have a better question. Like ask real questions. People's time is valuable. Everyone, and so is your own, obviously. So start saving your own and think through it and have a real thought. It's just I'm kind of ranting, but
oh, go
like,
ahead,
hey,
dude.
let's mastermind. Like, what are you talking about? What's your question? Right? Like, and that's what I started from the very beginning. I've never had anyone do that. I'm sitting here, I've been doing real estate for 13 years, working as hard as I could. I've experienced a lot, I've done a lot, I've seen a lot, and I've had one or two people ever do that. And I'm around thousands of people that act like they want more out of real estate. And I'm not mad that they don't. I'm just passionate that maybe they want something else and they're just not figuring that out. And maybe I can help them realize that.
That's the journey that a lot of us are on. I mean, because like we know what it is for us, but we don't know what it is for you. But we're trying to help people realize that, maybe that thing that you're chasing right now isn't what you think it is. And there's nothing necessarily wrong in changing that direction. That's kind of where like the ground zero part comes in. Because every once in a while, you go so far down one path and you realize it's not for you. Like, and that could be in a multitude of different things, but like you realize, like, okay, I got to find something new. And I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what any of this looks like, but hey, here I am. And I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm trying to think of the best way to word it. Like, beginning is always hard, no matter what. But like,
Mhm.
you realize, like, it starts with a few steps, whether that be reaching out to someone, asking real questions being a big one. And some of it, like, it's not even that it's such a big step, but it's just a hack. Like, it cut through the bullshit and just ask somebody a question.
Yeah.
And like, but
Every
like I'm
time I've
saying, like,
talked
yeah, go
to,
ahead, go ahead.
I've been reaching out to people for years, getting advice, and I started to talk to some like really wealthy people, like billionaire type, in the last like couple months. And what I realized is like, and it was funny because they all do this, and I don't know, I'm sure they've thought through this, but like my time with them is 15 minutes. Like all it happened three times, and all of them cut it off at 15 minutes. I was like, interesting. I usually sit with somebody for an hour. These guys are very clear. And so like I'm hopping on there like I got to be ready to go and be on my game. And they're very conscious about where they're putting their time, and we have to be. Like, and we should want that for ourselves and for other people. And if we can all recognize that, then we can get more out of it together. And you can figure out how to, you're like, all right, in 15 minutes, how do I add value for this person and also get my question across? And I think people just waste that way too much.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that, I mean, even looking back on my journey, like, I just, I didn't know what I was doing. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like, I kind of got caught up in the fact that I didn't know what I was doing, instead of like you're just saying, like, clarify
Yeah.
it, for
Yeah.
yourself, like
Yeah. There's no,
where,
pick my brain. Like, what's the question? Just do it right now. Ask the question. And you got to realize, and it's another kind of thought, I guess, but like I saw this somewhere the other day. It's like, life's like an art, man. It's like a song, and you don't have to get to this ending point. Like, you got to enjoy this journey. And if you're doing things that you're passionate about and you love, you're not too really worried about the outcome all the time. And it's not like you listen to a song and it's all about the end. It's about that process that you go through. And if you could treat that like everything you're doing and that you're passionate about, you're going to love what you're doing regardless of the results. And that's obviously the goal that we got to try to get to.
yeah. And I feel like one of the most powerful things that I've learned kind of along that line, is like you mentioned, like being worried about the outcome. Like I learned kind of over time, and I still fall victim to this sometimes, like, because like obviously some of us, like, we want situations to go well, like, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, like, whether it goes well or it doesn't, the situation is kind of what you make of it. And like I said,
Right.
I kind of learned that the hard way, where like you have to kind of have the mental like wherewithal, fortitude to recognize it for what it is and then move on with your life. And like I'm not saying you can't get negative, like you can't, I'm not saying you can't be negative about whatever situations happen, but
Yeah.
like it's that's far from the point. I actually heard a clip on Instagram the other day. I think it was Hal Elrod that was on, like it was a clip of him on someone else's podcast, but like
Nice.
the point that he made was that I don't know whether it was his own camp or somebody else's camp, but he said that they have like a I'm trying to think of the word, like a habit that they have that like you can be negative, but you have to set a timer. And
Mm.
by that, he's like, you set a timer for 5 minutes and you can get upset, you can scream, yell, cry, punch a wall, whatever you have to do. But when that timer's up,
Hmm.
take a deep breath. What was it? It was say he said, mutter 3 words to yourself, can't change it. And then like it never hit me until he said it, but he was like this is just an acknowledgement of the fact that what's happened has happened and it is gone. Like that there's no value now in trying to change it because you can't. It's gone. It's over. So now,
Right.
you know what I mean? You got that frustration out and you've acknowledged that you can't change whatever it is that's happened. Now what? Focus on your
Right.
next step. Forget that that's already gone. And like it really hit me when he said that, one, because it is super powerful, but at the same time, like that, like it comes back to that like situational thing. Like however much energy and focus you put on that, is that's what it's going to be. If I don't pay any attention to it, then it's not going to bother me. So like when
Yeah.
it comes to that, like I was just saying, like it is what you make of it. So you know, I mean, even if it's important, you know, take that breath, acknowledge that, you know, it is what it is, and now focus on your next thing. Either whether that's getting better, whether that's improving, you know, whatever that is, like now you focus on your next step, put your attention there rather than on what's already happened.
Amen, man. I love it. I love how he came on our podcast and he spoke some wisdom into me, and I loved it. One another thought that I have is it's a kind of an interview question that I've been having lately with people that kind of want to work with us. Is just I'll ask people, what is it that you have ever gone all in on? Tell me about that, and the challenges and like what kind of results you had. And I unfortunately I don't feel like a lot of people have a good answer to that. Like I'm talking all in, you know, not for a week, but for 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 year. What in your entire life have you ever gone all in on? And like, if you don't have that answer, you should start figuring that out because you've got to be passionate about what you're spending your time on.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, and it really kind of brings like some of the stuff we've talked about already kind of like full circle, where it all starts in the beginning and acknowledging the fact that you're in a position that you're not exactly happy, you're not exactly fulfilled, and then finding that thing for you and go all in. You know, like it's one of those things that like if you go half speed, you're like never going to get there, or you're going to get what's the word, like you're going to be chasing that dream for forever essentially because you're like not taking enough action. But at the same, or you're going to get to a point that you're not getting the results that you want and you're going to give up on it. So that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
like what we're saying, like go all in, start running, you know what I mean? Screw baby steps. Like I understand like
Yeah.
easing yourself into it, but just run, go. Like that momentum is going to carry you much further than the haphazard baby steps that you're taking, and then
And
you're going to
enjoy
hit your
it,
first
man.
roadblock and fall over.
There's no finish line. Like, enjoy the run, you know, enjoy the dance, enjoy the song. We've all gone through this, but like, it's not like I'm not trying to uh, talk too much about money or stuff, but like I remember not being, you know, not wanting to go to a restaurant or, you know, pay for this or that because I didn't have the money and just thinking how life would be so much better if I could go to this restaurant or this or that. And it's not. It like that time period when you didn't have to worry and you had less money, that was a great time period as well. And so you just got to enjoy it. Like you're going to get everything you need um, if you stay in the moment and stay present with yourself. But if you think that like you have to get to this point, you're going to get there and you're going to realize like I just wasted a lot of time and I wasn't enjoying this process. As long as you don't have to look at the clock and wait for time to go by, then you're going to be loving it, man.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I can speak to kind of about this like journey, like momentum, these things that we're just touching on here is like like when I started this, like I didn't feel like entirely confident in what I was doing because I didn't know what I was doing. But like that is where like we're saying like start, like you have to start, build up some momentum for yourself, because in doing that, like the longer it went on, the more confident I felt that I'm getting better at it, and that is momentum in and of itself. You start taking
Yes.
those few steps and you start rolling, you start gaining a little speed, little things like that. Now I feel like I have something to say. Now I feel like I have something to add to the conversation. Now I feel like every time I turn the camera on, I'm actually providing value to someone who's listening on the other end. But I never would have got here if I never started in the first place.
Right. Nailed it. That's it, man. And I'm not trying to come off like I know everything by any means. Uh, but I'm passionate about what I do, and things could change. I could have a new direction. I'm just trying to add value where I can. And exactly what you just said, if you're never gonna like feel that confidence and that, strength and excitement if you're not doing it, if you're just sitting there wondering what questions to ask, I just want you to realize that you're just wasting your time and just ask the actual question and then figure out which direction you want to go and think super long term. Like, I think it's unfortunate. It's a good thing in some senses that we do have so much opportunity these days. Like, there's a million things you can do. And so everyone wants to jump to it, and you can get lucky and you can do well. But if you want to enjoy the journey, then just do what you love and try to be good at it, and like care and get around other people that do and help other people and figure out how to grow together. And then you're going to be like living a fulfilled life.
Yeah, and I think what you just said is so important, like especially with the level of opportunity that we have now, that like whatever it is that you like, there's pretty much a way to monetize it. Like some way, somehow, there's a way that you can turn that into income and you can essentially make a living off of doing what you want. Whether that's speaking, whether that's drawing, whether that's, whatever your thing is, there's pretty much
Playing
a way
video
that you can.
games.
Yes, I mean, that is a prime example that now there's people making
Yeah.
ridiculous amounts of money just recording it, playing games, and it's like that's what we're saying, like that's why I'm trying to put so much emphasis on like what we talked about in the beginning, is finding what you want, because like no matter what, if you're doing what you want to do and you're doing what you like, then that's the biggest part of it, rather than trying to work backwards, that you're already in a job that you don't like, you're already, find what you like, then figure out what you can do to make money doing it, rather than like the whole backwards thing. That's what I'm trying to do. I feel like I've found a vehicle that I really like and that I am starting to enjoy, and I'm starting to get really good at it. Now I'm trying to figure out what I can do to make money doing it.
Yeah. And how
Where like,
blessed are we, man? Like, we get to find out what we like and do that. That's why at the beginning is like, if you have electricity and water, some people don't have that opportunity. They gotta do whatever they possibly can to survive and live. And like, if you live in America, for the most part, in my opinion, like, you have this opportunity. And that's who probably most people are listening to and who I talk to. And the other problems in the world, man, that's a whole nother story. And I'm sympathetic and I want to figure out how to plug in. But it's hard to have excuses here. And it's sad. Like, we post videos, we got, Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, everything. And the stuff that people say is really very negative, but it's really just sad. It's like, wow, this is just like, they're just saying like how, oh, it's easy to make that when you have this or that, this or that. It's like, well, what's your advice, dude? Right? You just want to bring negativity in the world, or are you actually saying something important? And we're just lucky. We're lucky to be able to. They're sitting on the internet on Facebook talking about how we're lucky. Come on, man! Like, put some perspective on this. What are you? You're just on Facebook right now. Go do something productive.
and I think that like that alone is so powerful too, because I think like going back on some of the points that we've made already, like so many people are stuck in that thing. Like we were just talking about, like had I gone on and got everything that I wanted out of basketball, that's great. But then I would have realized that it wasn't everything that I truly wanted internally. Where there's a
Right.
lot of people out there that are stuck in that. They are already where they wanted to be and they're not happy there. And now there's other people out there that are grinding, putting in the work to achieve everything that they want to do. And they're like simply using social media to, one, spread awareness about it, but also because they're excited about it. And then there's those people that are bitter, that are angry because they're stuck in that thing and it's not what they thought it was, that then turn that attention to you.
Yeah.
And like that's where like a few episodes back I had a kid on, and he called it your stronghold. And the biggest thing is, your stronghold is where you identify yourself, where you feel safe, where you spend all that time mentally, because that's where you see yourself. And pretty much what he said, like right in that interview, is you need to get out of whatever position that is right now, because you're going to get stuck in it and you're going to be bitter for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I love it,
And
man. And it, comes back to like my personal belief is like people need God, people need Christ. Like that's at the core of what's going to keep you happy and like content. And the rest of it, man, is it's finite, right? It's just worldly things, but we got to do something while we have this time. And I really don't want to, I'm not trying to talk down to people. I just trying to share as much as I can and give my opinions. And I'm always trying to learn and understand, but I'm just passionate about this concept of like, if you want it, like there is a way, and get real with yourself and understand that path. And then for the people that are really negative on the comments, like I care about helping them. I want to figure out how to break through, because they're made by God, right? Like they aren't horrible people. They just, whatever reason, they're not seeing it. And like that could have been me, and that could still be me in some senses. But I want to figure out how to break through that, and just let's all be different. Let's figure out how to help each other. And I don't fully understand like why uh people haven't gotten past that hurdle. And maybe it's because they haven't found God. I don't know. But I want to help people in the best way I can. I don't want to ever come across like I know everything. I definitely do not. I'm figuring out as I go. I have my own challenges. I have struggles. This isn't easy. But the thing is, at least I know that I'm trying. Like that's the thing I never will question. And if people can feel like that, then they can stop wasting time and not feeling clear and like making some kind of progress. We all just got to just make some kind of progress every day.
yeah, that was beautiful. I love the way that you just said that. So I'm not even going to try to like reiterate it. But
Thanks, man.
yeah. So yeah, yeah, no problem. So we're gonna go ahead and start winding it down here just a little bit. One of the questions that I always like to ask the guests as we wrap things up is, if you could go back and have a conversation with yourself in that ground zero moment that we talked about in the beginning, what do you think you would tell yourself in that conversation?
Good question. I'd say you're going to get everything you're working towards. You're going to get there. Enjoy the dance. Enjoy the journey as much as you possibly can. And you don't have to go so fast as fast as you think you need to.
Yeah, I really like that last point that you just made, and that's something that I hear a lot now too, because like, I'm young, I'm motivated, and I find myself in situations a lot where, I'm spending a lot of time doing different things that like I feel like I'm supposed to be doing, moving in the right direction. And it's not that I'm not enjoying those things, but then like I'll have a conversation with a mentor or a parent or, somebody outside, and they'll say, "Why are you in such a hurry?" And like um I feel like one of the people I hear that from the most is like, I follow Gary Vee on Instagram, so I see his stuff all the time. And he is one of the biggest people that I think I've ever seen that'll just say, like, dude, you don't have to have it figured out. Like, he's like, you could figure it out when you're 50. You could figure it out when you're 40. You could like stop rushing and enjoying and enjoy the journey, like you just mentioned. That's why I really like the point that you just made, that like I understand there's things that we all want, but if you also like bury your head in the sand, just grinding so hard, like you're gonna miss everything that's going on right now. And that's kind of what I'm trying to draw, attention
Yeah,
to right
dude,
there.
100%. I mean, I don't know about you, but like me looking back, like thinking about like middle school and like I feel like I hated school. And like nowadays, I'm like, man, I'm dropping my kids off at school. I'm like, how cool is this? They're just going and hanging out with their friends, and like they don't have that much to worry about. But I remember being there, like, oh, I can't wait until I can drive a car or go buy some food or this or that. But like that was a really cool time. And you learn more as you get older, obviously, but we're in that time right now and we don't realize it. We think things are going to be better, but they're really good right now. If you realize like how blessed and fortunate we are, and you just plug in and find things that you're passionate about. And you always have to have a goal. Like I'm a big believer that if you don't have a very clear goal, you're not going to be happy. And I don't know if that's accurate or not, but anytime I've had a clear goal at any time of my life and something I was striving and working towards, I was actually at my happiest state. And when I had no clear goal, I was just lost, and I wasn't very happy. And so I just think like constantly having a real goal that you're really going at hardcore. And in high school, it was my freshman year, I didn't make the baseball team, and I was like, next year I got to do everything possible to make the team. And I did. And like, I was so happy doing that. Even though I was struggling, I love that. I love that journey. And the journey, looking back, like more than making the team, it was the process. And also having confidence and to know like whatever you set your mind to, if you go all in, you can accomplish that. I believe that 100 million%.
Yeah, and just touching on both of those things, like one is like we talked about the situations. Situations are the way that you look at them. Like you chose not to give up on baseball. You chose to give everything you had to make sure that you made the team next year. And like that's just the way that you looked at it. You didn't say, "Oh, I'm not a baseball player," and just give up. You said, "No, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to achieve, and I'm going to bust my ass to get there." And that what is also what I'm saying is super important because like you said, you had that clear goal. You said, I'm making the team next year and I got to do everything that I can to get there. When you have that clear goal, it makes the rest a lot easier. Where like if you, I mean, even if you want to start there, like it's much easier to start there because it's much easier to picture the goal than it is to picture what you have to do to get there. So if
Yeah.
you can picture clearly where you want to go, and I mean, I feel like a lot of us have, one of those. We just either are afraid to pursue it or whatever, but every one of us probably has a picture of something that we want. And then if you then say like, okay, what does it take to have that? Okay, I now have that.
Yep.
Then break that down into something that you can do every day that moves you a little bit closer to that thing. Like you just talked about, your goal was making the baseball team. Okay, that means every day I need to be doing, fielding drills, throwing, different things like that. I obviously don't know what position you played, but just like little different things like that, that like you broke it down into little things that you can do every day to incrementally move you closer to that goal. And that's why I'm saying that it's much easier with that clear goal to, not only see the work that needs to be done, but to enjoy the process because you have that goal in mind the whole time. You know where you're going, you know what you're trying to achieve. Where, like you said, if you don't have that, you're lost because you're pursuing it, you're putting in the work, you think you're doing the right things, but you have no clue where you're going. So you don't necessarily have that motivation. You don't have that drive to reach that goal because you don't know where that goal is.
That's it, man. And that's what I'm trying to talk about like being real with yourself is people like, I want to make more money. And then I've just seen these people just bounce around, trying thing after thing after thing, and they're never getting there. And even if they get more money, it's not what they really want. Like our goal at our real estate brokerage is to be the brokerage, the best brokerage in the world that teaches people how to get more out of real estate for themselves. We're very clear on that. Not for the brokerage. Don't get your sales volume up. Go build your net worth. Go own assets. And like we're super zoned in on that. And it's very motivated and we're very driven to make that happen. But when you don't have clarity, that's where I'm trying to help people is like you think you want to make more money, but you don't. And that's okay. You want to have more balance and you want to like go in on your strengths or what you love or what you're passionate about and just figure out how to find that clarity out for yourself and then start making progress and then start asking real questions. And I think you're going to really love it and enjoy that process, like we mentioned.
And I think one of the biggest things there is like when picturing that goal, and like one of the big overarching things we've talked about today is like really looking deep internally, like finding out what that goal is and what you truly want is, I mean, like it's going to take time, and you have to kind of
Dude,
really
it
like
does.
block out the time. Like it's not going to happen in a couple hours. It's not going to happen in a couple days. Like it takes time for you to fundamentally figure out how you want to necessarily shape the rest of your life to achieve that vision. And that's okay. But what we are saying is take that time. Like you don't truly understand how important that is and how much time you're going to save yourself if you sit down now and have that internal conversation. And sometimes it can be external too. Like sometimes you develop that through conversations with other people
No,
about
it's
those things.
both. It's exactly what you said. I think it's the equilibrium point, right? Like, dude, I've been doing this for 13 years, and only did I come to this real clear vision in the last like year and a half. But I was always asking real questions, and I knew that this path I was on was where I was supposed to be. I just didn't know the very clear differentiator. So it's exactly what you said. It's both at the same time, and you don't have to have it clearly defined to take action. That's why you got to ask those questions, and slowly you're going to figure out kind of what's best for you.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And that's where I was just saying, like, I mean, one of the things for me is like, I mean, were you worried about making more money or were you worried about spending more time at home with your kids? Are you, do you want to have a bigger house? Do you want to have more cars or do you want to have more free time? Like there's different things and there's a lot of give and take. And, especially somebody at our age, like a lot of us are thinking about money right now. But we don't necessarily know. I mean, obviously we hear other people saying like, that's not going to make you happy. That's not going to fix your problems, whatever. But at the same time, we're going, yeah, when we make a bunch of money, we'll determine that for ourselves. Well,
I get it. I know.
when you
I've been
really
in that.
weigh that,
Yeah.
what's truly more important.
Yeah. I don't know the exact way to answer that, but I felt that same way. And
Yeah.
and now what everyone said makes sense completely.
Yeah, and that's where I just kind of wanted to, put that point out there before we go ahead and wrap it up here, that, like truly look inside. I mean, take the time, block it out, whatever you want to do. Like tell your roommate to leave for a couple hours, whatever that is. Like sit down, whether with a notebook or just music or whatever. I mean, and just think about what you want. And, like
Yeah.
even if you're not clear on that, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, but just start to incorporate that thought into little things that you do. Like, like for me, I can say, like not trying to ramble on here, but like
No.
until I kind of changed my mindset on it to where like this is what I wanted to do and this is where I found joy in what I'm doing, that's when I started to notice things in the regular world that fit into the vision that I was talking about.
Yeah.
So like when I decided that like I wanted to be good at podcasting, when I wanted to be a good podcaster, I wanted to be a better host, like things like that, I started noticing things in class. I started noticing things on social media, on TV, that I could reincorporate. But that's because I enveloped that identity and I was able to say like, okay, this is what I want to do. And then I started to notice those little things. And that's where like, we've talked about a lot today, that like, starting that momentum
Yeah.
and like, and all the opportunity. Well, like we said, like the universe has a funny way of kind of handing you things that you need when you're ready for them. And like, I'm a huge believer in what is meant for you will find you. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I said, not trying to ramble too much,
No,
but
I love
just,
it, man.
take that time, figure out what that thing is. And then, I mean, start going that way and the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah. Challenge yourself to go ask 10 very specific questions. Like questions you've already Googled, right? Like have a good question and have a goal of them being like, and this is to somebody that's doing something that you're interested in, and definitely figure out how to add value for them, right? But try to get to a question where they're like, I've never thought of that way. That's a really good question. I actually don't know like try to have a couple like that, right? Go ask some I challenge anyone, whatever you're thinking about, write down 10 really, really good questions and go ask them to 10 different people that are serious about what they do, and make them good questions and things that you actually care about, not things that you've Googled. Like, what are you genuinely curious? Like, not like, how do you make money? It's like in real estate, like, what happens when you get to that point and you've closed 100 deals? What would you do differently, or whatever it may be, right? Like, ask some really good questions.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the cool things about like when you're starting to like network early in your journey and stuff is a lot of those like calls, like depending on the way that you do it, a lot of those calls are going to be one on one, and like whether they're 15 minutes or 30 or whatever, like some of that depends on like the level of the person that you're getting connected with. But like those people, like first of all, if they didn't want to talk to you, they didn't never set up the call. But
Yeah.
two, that you can ask those questions that you are truly curious about and nobody else is listening. Like it's not one of those points where you're afraid to raise your hand in class because nobody else wants to know that, or somebody's going to laugh at you. It's not one of those things. It's something that you and them specifically, you're asking that question because you're genuinely curious. And a lot of those people, I mean, will flat out tell you if you're asking the wrong questions.
Yeah.
And like, but that's the power in it, is they will then tell you like, no, that's not what you need to know about, like that is not what you need to be worried about. And they'll either tell you or they'll point you in that direction because they might not necessarily have time to like fully break it down, and that's okay. But then they'll give you the seed and then you go study it the next way, and then you go do it the next way. You take something from every single interaction and then reapply it.
Come on, I love it.
But yeah, so end of rant. Thank you guys for coming to my TED Talk. I'm going to move on from that. Anyway, Matt, thank you so much for coming on today. I feel like we had a really, really great conversation. I enjoyed it a ton, and I truly think that anybody who tunes into this one today is going to get some serious value out of it. Always remember, everyone, this is Dream Chasers Ground Zero, and there's nowhere to go from here but up.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
I love it.